was already a knock on the front door. Multiple police officers had come into the house.
How would you describe me around that time? My name is Jacob Dunne. I'm an author, campaigner, and educator in restorative justice. In 2011, I threw a single punch that ended another man's life. And after 14 months in prison, I found myself homeless, unemployed, and struggling to find a sense of purpose. But I managed to get my life back on track. And now I help others do the same. Join me on this first season of Right From Wrong, where I speak to the people who were instrumental in my journey from punishment to redemption. This is Right From Wrong. Welcome back, listeners, and thanks again for joining Right From Wrong. I'm out of prison at this point and have developed a passion for learning. Things seem to be looking up for me, despite the obvious challenges that come with growing into a new self and finding my feet on a new path. I'm about 18 months out and just turning 21. I am clutching a piece of paper with some A-star grades on it that both validate a renewed belief in myself and mitigate the limiting ones I had previously held about myself. Meanwhile, my dear mum has just passed away and I am at another fork in the road. Do I fall back to the old habits of running and fighting against anything uncomfortable in life, or continue down the path of redemption and taking accountability that Joan and David had nudged me down? I was tired of running, but as you will find out with my next guest, not completely fixed, not by a long shot. Although I don't think anybody is ever truly fixed. We just have continual choices to make that either move us along a spectrum of harming or healing ourselves and others. A continual work in progress, like a house renovation that never ends, or painting the fourth bridge. My next guest was also studying his GCSEs at the same time as me, my 15-year-old brother, who also had a choice to make, to come and move into a one-bedroom flat that Wendy, my probation officer, had helped me get, or to turn his back on the older brother he had always longed for. Please welcome Sam to the show. So what was it like having me as a brother?
Well, it depends when you're asking.
Different answers for different time periods.
Yeah.
So seeing as we're starting this podcast in a timeline around when I came out of prison, what would the word, or how would you describe me around that time?
A bit of a dick.
Yeah. You could have been a bit harsher there, I think. Tell me a little bit more about what you remember from that time in terms of being sentenced and finding out the news about what had happened.
Well, memory serves me right, we'd been on holiday. So,
oh my God, yeah.
So we'd had a trip booked to Tenerife, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And that was our last family holiday, looking back. So yeah, we'd not long gotten back from there. Maybe it was like 2-3 days in. I remember it was really sunny outside. Mum had gone to Boots to go and get the disposable camera pictures printed out. And yeah, I was sat at the garden table flicking through the pictures.
Oh my God.
But little did I know that there was already a knock on the front door. And yeah, I think multiple police officers had come into the house, loads of them. And they also came through the back gate as well. And obviously me, being myself, not fazed really by any of it, started showing the police officers my holiday pictures. So look where I've been. But yeah, I think they were then having chats with Mum. But yeah, I hadn't really known what the full picture was. Because like I said earlier, you were a bit of a dick and there were ups and downs in what you do and what you don't do. And it was sort of, is it just the police coming around to give Jacob a slap on the wrist again? Or what's he done now? Or,
yeah. So yeah, then we come back from that holiday, and I remember that holiday was being, like, as you say, it was our last. We didn't know that at the time, but that was our last family holiday, the three of us, and it was a good holiday from what I remember.
It was, yeah.
I think we all kind of reconnected. I had become quite absent.
Yeah, intermittent, in and out. So I guess, yeah, having you for, I don't know if it was a week or 2 weeks, I can't remember, but having you for that period of time, it was an odd time because obviously you being absent and not being around that much, it was just nice to actually have a normal brother relationship, something which we didn't really have because of the lifestyle that you had. And I think because you were always my big brother, there was always that sort of yearning to have a relationship with you, not necessarily look up to you, but having a big brother there that's, you know, got that friendship. It was nice to have that for that short period of time.
What do you mean by I was absent, Sam?
Your lifestyle, who knows what you're up to? And that's what my life was. And maybe you'd turn back and you'd be suddenly there in the kitchen eating a bowl of cornflakes, and you're off again for 2 days because you've had an argument with mum because she's been asking where you are for the past 4 days. And
just the endless cycle.
An endless cycle
of like never sorting our relationship out with mum since being excluded from school and everything. She used to always say, you come in, I think you just said it there beautifully, you come in and you just treat the house like a hotel.
Yeah.
You eat the food, get a quick change and shower, and then
you're off again.
So our relationship was just getting a little bit better, or there was glimmers of it. Now you were getting a bit older and we were on holiday. The police come round. When did you find out what I'd been arrested for?
I don't think I was told.
Do you know?
I think it was fly on the wall.
So how old was you?
I was 13 at the time.
Yeah. Was it a big transition for when I actually went to prison? Because as you've already said, I wasn't actually around that much anyway, but to know I definitely wasn't going to be popping in and out. How was that?
I mean, truthfully speaking, I think there was a period of calm.
Yeah.
It was in some ways nice. It's, you know, as harsh as that sounds, it was, the drama's gone, and it's selfishly, in some ways, it's maybe my time.
Yeah.
It's not about my brother coming in and having arguments with mum, or, you know, if you've come in and you've had too much to drink or whatever you might have taken and you're violent. It's calm.
Yeah.
And even though, you know, mum was the way she was, and I'm sure we'll touch on that in a bit, but it was nice to just be in the house for myself and nothing else going on.
Yeah. Did it feel like you were, your needs weren't being met?
Oh, that's a really tricky one. I think my needs were being met from a parent relationship, but I think the environment that I was in, it sort of set about a sense of self-dependence a little bit, in terms of, I don't know, mum's sat somewhere upset because she's had an argument with you, or she's gone out to go and find you. Like, where's my son? Where's my Jakey? And so, yeah, I would stick at home and put on something on TV and sit by myself.
So did we even speak while I was in prison?
I don't recall.
Don't think we did.
I don't think we did at all.
Mum couldn't drive. I remember she got a lift now and again to come and visit me. I think she visited me twice.
Yeah.
I remember you telling me you came to one of those, but you didn't come in, obviously.
Yeah. So I think mum was quite adamant that I wouldn't be going into any sort of prison environment or, you know, be seeing any of that sort of world. And yeah, I just remember pulling up and seeing, you know, these big high walls and thinking, you know, my brother is in there, and who is he now? And just sort of waiting outside while our mum, Nan, were going in to see you. I think it was only at that point that I really thought about you. Not that I hadn't thought about you, but I thought about who you might be, who you might be now.
Yeah.
My idyllic view of the prison system at that age is, you do a bad thing, you go into prison, you've learnt your lesson, and you come back out and you're a different person.
Yeah.
So I think by that point there was some sort of sense of eagerness to see you again, thinking that I would see this brand new person that's going to come out on the other side.
Yeah. As we know, that, unfortunately isn't the case, or wasn't the case for me. So what was your anticipation as I was getting closer to coming out?
I was apprehensive, but excited in a way. I felt like I was going to meet a stranger, but someone that maybe I'd met, you know, a lifetime ago. And it was going to be this new person, this new look about them, this new persona. And I thought that's what I was going to meet. I think there was another part of me that was hoping for some support. During the time that you were away, mum progressively went downhill. It was her alcoholism had really taken hold by that point, and I'd essentially become a young carer. It was a really dark time for me at that point in my life, and the thought of you coming back, in my eyes at the time, thought that would change the whole setup. I thought mum having her son back might
boost her,
give her a bit of an oomph to get herself out of the hole that she'd found herself in. And so that was playing on my mind, and thinking, you haven't got that much longer left until your brother's out and you'll be all hands on, and maybe some things will start looking up a little bit. But at the same time thinking, well, if that isn't the case, where do we go from here?
Because you weren't even going to school that much, were you, now? At this point?
So I think multiple reasons at that time. I was, new school, all new people, that's daunting enough in itself. There was hiding the fact that my mum was an alcoholic, scared of any involvement of social services or things like that. In my head at the time, it was, if I let on, I'm going to get taken away. So it's hiding that and covering for mum a lot of the time. And then home life, not wanting to come home to something I'm not going to be pre-aware of. I want to be there, see what's going on, as hard as it is, but then there's no surprises.
Yeah, instead of, if you go to school for the day, you don't know what you're going to come back to at the end of the day, do you?
Exactly.
So it's easier to stay in your room.
Yeah. Help mum where she needs the help. It's awful to see someone you love slowly slipping away from you, and you just sort of get glimmers of who they are in the morning when they've sobered up a bit, which would be when I'll go to school, and I would miss that if I'd gone. And so I'd have those maybe first couple of hours before the drinks start again. And by the evening, and I'm collecting her from a park and bringing her home and wiping uppercuts.
Yeah, I remember the odd night like that when I got out of prison. And I guess that's one of my regrets, is I wish I could have been more capable when I came out of prison to be able to save the day. But I was barely able to save myself. And I kind of knew that if I moved it back in with mum, because I was getting asked in prison, have you got anywhere to live? And I was like,
well, absolutely. Looking back, it was a toxic environment. It wouldn't have helped in any way at all, you being in that.
So I made the decision. I was like, right, I'll be better use if I can try and get, when I chose to go homeless, didn't I? And just sofa surf until I could get a hostel.
Yeah.
And then I would come round and just like pop in. And can you remember like any of those early days when I first came round?
I'm going to go back a bit. It was actually the first time I saw you when you were out. And I think all of those emotions of who is he now? What is he like? Is he this changed person? All came to the forefront. And it's almost like, from my perspective, the slate was clean and we were starting again from scratch.
Well, that was very kind of you.
Yeah, because it was just face value. It was a new start, right? Throughout our relationship, when you were sort of transforming your own life and having your own battles between old life, new life, that was representative in my relationship with you. Because every time you chose old life, our relationship fell.
Yeah.
And every time you chose new life, it was started to build up again. And so it's almost like this wave of emotions between us, where it was, we're getting there. I hate him. Right?
Yeah.
And this first visit I saw you, it was that high. I remember we'd gone to a barber's and we'd gone in there. We'd had a great conversation walking through the estate together, and I'm feeling like, this is great. My brother's back and he's this new person. It's a miracle. And we were sat in this barber's, and I think some of your mates walked past and, caught a glimpse of you through the window, and your whole persona changed.
Yeah.
And you'd gone from talking to me normal and being nice and smiley to this street persona. And you can describe it better than what I can, I'm sure. And I thought, oh, there he is.
He's back.
Yeah. It's almost like this duality of a person, of two sides to you.
Yeah.
And as soon as I saw that, I remember sitting there thinking my heart sank, because I thought, he's back. And is this the way it is now? And so the guard went back up again. The slates were being tapped back onto the roof, and I'm hesitant. And so then I was cautious, I think, after that, of how far I'd open up to you, and I would just start being a fly on the wall again and seeing how it plays out.
That was a mad time, and I still think that I can float between those two sides, but I'm just a lot more comfortable now in my own skin and doing it more healthily. Mum didn't get any better, did she? And I didn't save the day, unfortunately. Yeah, I remember coming round, and as you described earlier, just incidents where we'd find her down by the Trent or on a park bench or wherever. We'd have to bring her back. And then I came round, and then she just wasn't well at all. Like she'd started to go, what do they call it, jaundice?
Yeah.
So it's like gone all yellow, basically, for the audience who don't know what jaundice is, which is a sign of kidney, liver failure, whichever one, probably both. And I was seeing a nurse at the time, and she said, look, you need to ring an ambulance. Rang an ambulance, and they came round, we went to hospital. I remember taking her to hospital and thinking, a bit like you when I was coming out of prison, oh, something's going to happen now, we're going to get the support. I remember going to hospital with her and going to the doctors, look, you've got to sort this out now. We can't keep hiding this.
And just to add in, this was lead up that had taken so long to get to that point. It was booking doctor's appointments and running away from the doctors, hiding in alleyways. I think we even had the priest from the local church, saying, I will take you into the doctors. And
I remember just going in, checking on her, and then, just thinking everything was going to be fine. And I'd speak to Nan and go, doctors are saying it's all good, like she's stable. And then I was with some of my mates at the weekend, and the fucking doctor rang, didn't he? Said, Jacob, you need to come in. Your mum's not going to make it past the weekend. I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Oh, no. I went for every emotion possible. I just rang everyone in my phone book and said, you need to pray for my mum right now. Then went up, told everyone. And I think it was about 48 hours, wasn't it? It was quite a while, I think, of like slowly just making them comfortable. And there was a lot of people up there.
There was also that aspect of what happens to me next, is thinking I'm not old enough to not have mum here, not even just the aspect of I need someone to look after me, because I was looking after her. But she was the adult where I could live independent and do what I needed to do. And there was that point of every aspect of my life is going with this person home, way of living. Yeah, it's all going to disappear within this weekend.
Yeah, because Dad was in Manchester. They broke up when I was about 7. He was about 18 months. So didn't really have a relationship formed by this point.
Yeah.
Especially not you. You'd come to visit me a couple of times in prison. Cards and letters and bits and bobs. And, just for context, Nan was in a wheelchair. And Auntie Paula had her own problems, which meant they weren't going to be able to care for you. And then we were sat in this rented house thinking, what we're going to do and where are you going to go? And I think we had like most of the family. Dad was there, social services.
Yeah.
Me. It was like in my 1-bed flat.
Everyone seemed to have their own opinions.
Yeah. And do you feel like you were asked yours?
Towards the end of the discussions, I think so. There was an initial expectation that it would be going to Manchester. But personally, for me, it was just a step too far. It was losing a parent, losing a house, then losing your city is just a step too far. And I think it was at that point when, in my mind, it was you are not the only option left, but it makes sense to move in with my brother.
Yeah.
But that's obviously when those emotions of who is my brother now.
Yeah, because you were still, at this point, a bit wary of my checkered life and struggling to navigate who I was. And
am I going to go from one home life, which has been traumatic, into a different home life, but it's also traumatic, but in a different way?
Yeah. So you made the decision that I was the lesser of the evils, right?
No, not quite like that, no. But I must add, there is that aspect of it is the two of us now, like what Mum would always tell us.
Yeah.
Once I'm gone, it is the two of you left.
Yeah. Once I'm
And
gone,
so-
it's only going to be you two.
Although there was those concerns, there is the other aspect of still always that yearning to still have a big brother
Yeah.
that would always win against my concerns for the other you
Yeah.
when I spoke about it earlier. And so always a positive outlook, I guess.
Yeah, it's always a positive outlook. That's us.
That's,
If you can't look on the bright side.
yeah,
right?
I'm sure it will be fine.
I'm sure it'll be fine. Just go with the flow. We'll find a rainbow somewhere along this river. Yeah, so then it happens, doesn't it? You move into the house I'd been given,
Yeah.
the little flat,
Yeah.
Manifold Gardens in the Meadows. God, I was literally barely looking after myself. I was going college.
Yeah, it was early days.
It was early days when I was going college. I could have easily used Mum's death as a reason to just go off the rails and just be like, oh, fuck this. Just as lots of people do, don't they? When they go through something negative, I could have picked up the bottle. But, what happened from your perspective? I guess there's two questions here. One, was it the right choice to move with me?
I think it was.
Yeah. And then
Hindsight's a wonderful thing. Looking back, it was.
Yeah.
It was.
But what was it actually like? Because this is a part where I always feel like, I feel guilty for lots of things as this episode has brought out. But I know it's not good to make myself feel shameful about it. But I feel like I could have supported you and us better in that arrangement. But yeah, I remember you came moving in. I was with Nikki, my partner, who was a nurse. He was living with me, and then I was studying college. You were also by the time you then went back to college when you moved in, because you'd, for obvious reasons, lost your mum in your GCSE year.
In the GCSE, yeah.
I was already at college, and you were both going back to college. She moved down because she was like, "This is a bit too much. Like, I'm in a one-bedroom flat,"
which is what I felt guilty about. That was my guilt.
That was your guilt.
Yeah, yeah. You're starting to move on with your life, and found you'd found someone. You were settling down. You were setting a life for yourself, and partially felt to blame for storming in and ruining it all. But
no, well, we're both going to make sure we don't feel or have to hold any guilt after this conversation.
Absolutely.
And then you brought Mum's dog with you as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we were having to fit all the other stuff out. And then, do you know something I really feel bad about is Mum's dog?
Is it?
Yeah. Caleb.
Yeah.
It was a Bichon Frise, little white fluffy thing, right? And it wasn't great for my street cred, I tell you, right? Yeah. And I was still in that position, right, of still, I wasn't, fully comfortable, as you mentioned in the barber shop scene or whatever.
Exactly, yeah.
And so walking the mum's dog
on the estate,
right, was not like, it really bothered me, right? And I couldn't do it. So you had to get that job.
Well, I guess that sums up the two of us, right? There was you, embarrassed to bits of this dog walking through the estate.
Yeah.
And there was me with a custom-made basket on the back of the bike where Caleb would sit and we'd go on bike rides.
Yeah.
So there's the two of us summed up.
Exactly. So you were kind of like much more comfortable in your own skin, in your own little ways.
Bit grounded.
And then, you came out as gay, which was, I think I was the last person that you told, though.
I think so. But even though I didn't realistically assume that you would give me any grief.
Yeah.
But I think your
masculine macho-ness.
Yeah.
Or elements of it that was still...
Yeah, and elements of those mates that may have dipped in and out of your life.
Yeah.
And would that have had an impact on me in any way? Because, you don't necessarily think gang culture on a council estate is going to be the most welcoming to someone like myself.
Yeah.
And if it's those people that may come to our door at any point, I'd prefer to keep it quiet. Myself. Yeah.
And they were coming to the door still, weren't they?
They were.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was times when, I guess, I was still grieving and I was still trying to find my feet for a long time, my friendship group, because all I knew was this group of people.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I was trying to find a whole different friendship group, a whole new kind of identity. I didn't want to let go of the old me, because then I wasn't really sure about who the new me was. Do you know what I mean? And then you were doing your counselling.
Mm-hmm.
I want to give them a shout out, to be honest.
The Laura Centre.
The Laura Centre.
Yeah, Leicester.
For child bereavement services. Did you find that helpful?
I did. And I did actually stop, and I never went back. And so your shout out is my apology. But I know there's nothing, it is what it is at the time, and you do what you need to do. But it was really helpful up until a certain point, and then I felt like I needed to stop for a bit.
Yeah.
But I think it really did help in learning to communicate and start to loosen up a little bit. Because of my experience growing up was obviously, like I said before, hiding what's going on, covering it up, keeping up appearances, making sure that we're still like a decent enough family, even though the cracks were showing. So learning to develop how to start saying, I'm feeling like this at the Laura Centre and through counselling, and, you know, going through the emotions, it helps to not keep it all bottled in. So talking key. Yeah.
Talking key, which is a theme of throughout this series.
Yeah.
Every guest that we've had on is, you know, the importance of relationships and talking and understanding your emotions, whether that's going back into prison, whether that's talking to the victims of who are hurt, whether it's our relationship or whether it's your process of grief, or it's a common thread throughout. So talking about talking and repairing the harm and doing the work on ourselves. Did I ever tell you much about David and Joan when all this was going on? Because I think I was going through that process.
I think, I don't think it was ever one of those things that crossed over. I think it was, I didn't really know what you were up to much at that time. I think we were too busy focusing on each other. Yeah.
And I guess I didn't always I wanted to make sure that you were getting the support from other people and that you were accessing services, and that, you know, I could do the little I could, but I was still trying to learn the words myself to like express how I was feeling. And I wasn't going for counselling.
Yeah.
Because I was the big bad man on the estate or whatever. You know what I mean? So I didn't need to go for therapy and talking. But I was having a conversation with David and Joan and learning bits in a different way there.
Yeah.
And trying to get my life back together. I eventually repaired that relationship with David and Joan. And how did we repair our relationship?
I think we started to find common interests. We'd sit down and talk politics for an hour and debate, which you wouldn't think would start to help conversations, would you?
Yeah.
But we'd go out for walks.
We both love nature.
Yeah. And I think it was odd because I think the more you'd process your emotions and the more you were working on yourself, the repercussions of that was coming on to us. So I don't think necessarily we did anything. We didn't sit down and say, this is what we're going to do. But the fact that you're transforming your life and the way you start to then live your life by example, I guess, the repercussions of that are coming onto us. Yeah. Like through your hobbies that you're guessing you're identifying. So why do you like nature? Because that was not the brother that I knew growing up. Like, well, how did that come about?
I think it was just because as I was having those conversations and I was getting more responsibilities, I was realizing that even though I didn't go for therapy and everything, I was like finding ways of feeling calm or being present or being able to like, I'd be more likely to be able to sit and have a cry in a field or in a woods. Right? Because I just feel more at peace instead of walking around the estate. Do you know what I mean? And so I just started to realise, the walk down the river is lovely. Do you know what I mean? And then I'd be like, oh, look, I wonder what that tree is. I love that tree. I don't know what the name of it is. Yeah. And then I'd be like, oh, it's a birch. Yeah. Oh, that's it's a conker, but it's actually a chestnut. Yeah. And I just started getting curious because I was in education. So as I started just becoming more and more curious about the world and letting go of my labels and beliefs, I just became more curious and followed what my natural curiosity, where it took me. Yeah. And thankfully, it took me down some of the same
Yeah.
interests that you were curious about,
Yeah.
which it helped in terms of,
And I think maybe that's just a link to, we both had the same upbringing.
yeah,
We both had the same childhood,
yeah,
but we both went very separate ways.
Mm.
We all get to a certain age where we make our own life choices and make our own decisions, like taking, do I go left, do I go right?
yeah,
But once you've done all your experimenting and, you know, trying out your different paths and your different roads you want to go down,
yeah.
do you end up reverting back to what you learned in the beginning?
You know, you mentioned that we hit a fork in the road and we drifted apart our separate ways and then came back together. Take us back to before we hit the fork in the road and early family
Life.
Yeah, your memories.
My memories of us growing up are bouncy castles in the garden, and on parties. I think every child party seemed to be in our garden.
Yeah,
It was a social hub to a certain extent. There was always Nan, Paula, you know, Julie would come over, her
All
auntie,
cousins.
cousins were all there, and we sort of playing paddling pools in the summer, water fights, and it was an adventure playground, but at home. It's sort of my guide, almost as a child, and I think that's what led always, even though we ended up taking different paths. I think it was that part of me because of the age gap. I think there was always a bit where I was like yearning for my big brother, or wanting to have that relationship, because that was our primary setup growing up. And I think having that age gap, you could be the big brother having 7 years on me.
This whole podcast series is, partly informed by the play, and many of the characters on this show are also characters in the play. We're going to meet James Graham, the writer, in the final episode of the series. So, Sam, you've seen the play a couple of times. What did you think?
The initial time watching the play, it was more of a surreal experience. I wasn't really watching the play from face value. I was watching it from a first-hand experience.
Yeah.
So I think the first time watching the play was extremely emotive, but come second, third, etc., you begin to watch it for its face value and its message that it's getting across. And I think, it has been done perfectly. I didn't see any night the audience weren't moved to tears. I think it was very surreal sitting there in an auditorium and just hearing sniffles, at the end of a performance, instead of, the usual uproar, which did come along.
It does come, yeah. There's a standing ovation.
Yeah.
And almost a release of something in the audience.
I think it's one of those things that everyone can connect to. There's certain aspects of that which everyone's experienced in their life, whether it is, going out and getting into fights, or that sort of culture touches on relationships, talking. And I think anyone can appreciate the importance of sitting down and having a conversation with someone, or just talking through your emotions.
Yeah. Especially someone that you care about and that you want to kind of, like that yearning. Lots of people have yearnings to kind of repair relationships, or get on with the big brother, or reconnect with the little sister, or get on with their mum or dad, or whatever it is. Well, not many people do it.
And I think that touches on how do we overcome that. And I think the David and Joan and your story, how, if you can even attempt to start that process, I think it's the symbolism of that and the message that gives for just people to maintain relationships and to deal with things in the right way is so powerful.
Wow. How would you describe our relationship now?
Well, I guess the past of our relationship is poles apart of where we were at. It's now mainly calling each other to, what the sort of things that we end up talking about for hours down the phone.
Oh my God.
I think that's mainly sums up our relationship now, isn't it?
Yeah. Spontaneous calls
for hours, and then a little bit of a gap.
Yeah.
Because we're very bad communicators. Yeah. Talking about communication.
Staying connected.
We're
good when we're communicating.
Yeah.
But
good when we are communicating.
Yeah.
Just not,
connected at times. Yeah. Which I think is a trait, I don't know, of men in general. Usually women tend to,
I think it can be.
Put it out there to the audience.
Yeah.
How can men be better at keeping connected with each other?
Yeah.
But when we are connected,
and I think that's certainly what I'm working on now, is my responsiveness making sure that I pick up the phone and say, you know, should we go here? Should we go and do this? And that's what we're starting to do now, aren't we? We sort of, even though we live in different cities, we meet up, go for a pub lunch, going out with my niece and nephew. It's, yeah,
we can be big kids again.
Yeah, big kids again. We just need to go and get some water balloons and a wheelie bin, and I think we'll be fine.
We also have one last thing that we need to sort out, that we've been hiding from, and we have been connecting about it and talking about it.
Yeah.
But it's we need another family holiday.
We do.
And we're going to scatter Mum's ashes. It doesn't help, though. So for any people out there who are planning on being cremated, please give instructions as to where you'd like them going or what you'd like doing with them.
It's been a decade of debate.
It's been a decade of denial and debate because we didn't have any clear instructions. So yeah, we're definitely going to commit here on live on the podcast to making sure we get that family holiday booked.
Yes.
And get that done and staying connected.
Yeah.
Well, Sam, it's been an absolute honour to have you on the podcast. I love you so much.
I love you too.
I'm very proud of you. And
likewise.
And I look forward to staying connected and watching each other's growth and continuing as we are. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Next week, I'll be talking to Sandra Barefoot, a curator of a number of prison reform programs. We talk about how she took me back to prison, but this time for the right reasons. Be sure to give it a listen. In season 2 and beyond, it is super important for me to make sure I deliver a podcast that brings you the most value possible. And so I need your help. So if you could hit subscribe and follow, I'd really appreciate it.